Hey there, folks. I'm Mark, in affiliation with Spectrum Pulse, and it's Polo G and SZA versus Christmas on Billboard Breakdown. I don't remember. I think I might have mentioned something about this last year amidst the holiday rush for the Hot 100, but I always find it kind of peculiar when acts choose to drop projects around this time of the year. Not that they can't or they won't be interesting for it, but more often than not it runs the risk of being overshadowed by the holiday season that saturates the chart and leaves you kind of wondering what might have been if we didn't have so much of all that. Now in this case, Polo G is only just releasing the deluxe edition of Hall of Fame, called Hall of Fame 2.0, and that seemed to come and go really fast. And when we got that second posthumous Juice WRLD album on the horizon for next week, yeah, that'll be a more interesting and depressing conversation if that album bomb likely gets traction. But before we get to all that, our top 10, where for another week, Adele has managed to hold the number one with Easy on Me thanks to the radio dominance and consistent strength pretty much everywhere else. But as I've said this before, it's a margins gain, and right behind it is All I Want for Christmas Is You by Mariah Carey at number 2, which just rules streaming and is looking to make up just enough ground elsewhere to take the top spot. And riding in right behind her is Rockin' Around the Christmas Tree by Brenda Lee at number 3, which, on a side note, kind of has me perplexed why this is the second holiday standard that folks really got behind en masse. I mean, I'm not complaining, it's a good song, but why this one specifically? It was enough to shove back Stay by Kid Laroi and Justin Bieber down to number 4, but given how its radio is finally starting to implode, that might have been inevitable. Then we got A Holly Jolly Christmas by Burl Ives, actually passing Jingle Bell Rock by Bobby Helms at number 5 and number 6. Good, the better song here really is winning out. But that takes us to a new charting debut at number 7, I Hate You by SZA. Now make no mistake, this is here on streaming and not on radio, proving once again that her labels and her team don't seem to have a damn clue how to properly push her singles. But as I'll get into the song much later on, I'm just happy that she actually had the balls to release a song with that title in the holiday season. It really can set a certain mood, that's all I'll say. Either way, it was enough to knock back both Industry Baby by Lil Nas X and Jack Harlow to number 8, which has some residual streams and radio inertia, but seems really precarious there, and Heat Waves by Glass Animals at number 9, which is just getting a ridiculous push on the radio that, at least to me, seems to be coming at the worst possible time. Go figure. And to bring up the rear, It's the Most Wonderful Time of the Year by Andy Williams breaks into the top 10 at number 10. Just lovely. But now on to our losers and dropouts. In the latter category, outside of Wild Side by Normani and Cardi B, which never quite performed the way it really should have, we got a bunch of songs that have been wavering in and out for the past couple weeks, really the past month or so anyway. Moth to a Flame by Swedish House Mafia and The Weeknd, Who's in Your Head by the Jonas Brothers, Baddest by Youngblood, Chris Brown and 2 Chainz, and Volvi by Aventura and Bad Bunny. Honestly, I won't be surprised if any of these come back. And most of our losers are continuations from last week as well. All Too Well by Taylor Swift at 42, Beggin' by Mainskin at 43, Oh My God by Adele as the last remaining touch from that album bomb at 47, and If I Didn't Love You by Jason Aldean and Carrie Underwood at 52, along with some odd jockeying for holiday song position as It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas by Michael Bublé slid down to 32. Now as for the rest, well, Same Boat by the Zac Brown Band skidded down to 73. Sharing Locations by Meek Mill featuring Lil Baby and Lil Durk just looks like it's getting rotated out at 83. Just About Over You by Priscilla Block lost off the return at 93. And Poke It Out by Wale and J. Cole looks like it's imploding at 99. Good. Happy to see that I was wrong and that this is not catching on. Now in our returns, outside of Too Easy by Gunna and Future clawing its way back to 80, I do think it's kind of funny that It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas by Perry Como and the Fontaine Sisters shot back to 20. Now this to me says that a lot of folks started off spinning the Michael Bublé version of the song, and then they may have realized they kind of wanted the older version later on, and that's mildly amusing. But we did get a couple of gains here. Shame that by far the biggest one is Super Gremlin by Kodak Black, up to 23. Seriously, what is this guy's deal with weird holiday runs that work way better than they should have, along with Woman by Doja Cat at 64, and Bad Man Smooth Criminal by Polo G getting that album boost to number 70. Not really a big boost, but it is going to be enough to keep this going, even if I don't think it's going to last. And with that, we actually did get a pretty sizable list of new arrivals, nearly half of which come from Polo G, but not enough to make for a proper album bomb. So let's get things started with number 100, Partin Ways by Polo G.
I just want something real, I don't wanna pretend. Really felt connections from the touch of your skin. Constantly drinking, I'm stuck in a bin. Are you careless or was it revenge? Crazy what the true colors could blend.
I'm gonna start by saying that I'm in a bit of a weird spot with Polo G right now. Not that I think that he makes bad music, and I actually think this song's pretty damn good, especially with its central premise of getting worn down by the constant violence in his community and the internal pressure, then trying to be there for his son, but it came at the cost of his relationship where it all fell apart. And while he knows it's kind of toxic to keep on pursuing, he's gonna make one last attempt at it. It's a really potent sentiment, and backed up by the mournful guitar, the pitch-shifted sample, and unfortunately a really cheap-sounding trap beat. It feels like the sort of track that Polo G could knock out of the park in his sleep, and that might be the problem. Without a bit of a stronger hook to put this over the top or adding more of a melodic change-up, it just falls towards the background of good, but not quite great Polo G songs that I wish hit a little bit harder for me. It's still good though, so I don't mind it. I just wish I liked it more. Number 98, Mercedes by Brent Faiyaz.
More than just driving Mercedes. More than these hoes gon' call and drive you crazy. They gon' drive you They just tryna f***ing have my baby.
Okay, is Brent Faiyaz gonna catch any sort of coherent traction for his singles? I swear, he puts them out. For the most part, they're good to great, but they never seem to really move the way they should, and I'm not quite sure this will move the needle either, even if I do think this is actually pretty damn good. The spiraling synth, off-kilter bass shutter, and Faiyaz's slightly offbeat crooning against the distant crack of the beat, it takes a little bit to coalesce and grow on you, but it kind of fits for the uncomfortable pushback that Brent Faiyaz is making against women who want him more for his lifestyle or to have a baby than who he actually is, and there might be more she's not prepared for. And I've seen people call this toxic by pairing it with the more restrained, sensual R&B presentation, especially the falsetto on the post-chorus, but I don't know, I'm not sure I really agree with that. The tone might be enticing, but he's not really leading anybody on in the content. This is kind of just the tone in which he operates, and I appreciate how consistently he actually keeps up his walls. So yeah, it might not immediately work, but it grew on me. I dig this. Good song. Number 97, I'll Be Home for Christmas by Camila Cabello.
If only in my dreams.
Oh boy, more Amazon exclusives, now with one from Camila Cabello, where she's leaning even harder on the lush mariachi elements for what kind of reminded me a little of when old school pop producers tried to add some Latin elements across the 50s and 60s for a bit of flavor. A cultural clash that feels all the more flagrant here with all the jaunty strings and especially the old-fashioned male backing vocals. But what it really winds up exposing it's just how terrible Camila Cabello sounds here with this arrangement. Now, part of this is the flat-out awful vocal production, which renders her already thin-sounding voice sounding a lot worse than normal. But she's also trying to play to more of a sultry groove than what the song's trying to deliver, so she just kind of winds up sounding incompetent. Honestly, she's trying to sing it like the classic smoldering crooners of old did, but this arrangement sounds like something they would have given to Pat Boone. It's just utterly wrong here. So while Camila Cabello remains one of the weakest singers in mainstream pop, this is a disaster all the way down. It's not entirely her fault. So yeah, it's real bad. Next. Number 94, Start Up Again by Polo G featuring Moneybagg, yo.
Switch on the chopper, that bitch gets to rattling. Really hate him, go shoot up the candle. Little mama thick, but just watch how I handle it. Beat up the pussy, I damage it. Passport down, fuck the ref, I'm traveling. Louis by Virgil, my drip is immaculate.
Okay, we got two Polo G songs in a row here, starting off with the Moneybagg Yo collab, which apparently the streets were waiting for, that didn't apparently bother to get a hook or a competently mixed drill beat, because the trap bass swamps out everything. It's not not even 2 minutes long, and Polo G at least pretend to care that this deluxe album wasn't an obvious cash grab. But no, it's brand name porn, a lot of limp gunplay, and increasingly slapdash flows and sex references, where the bigger surprise is that Moneybagg Yo doesn't utterly fumble his verse. Hell, he actually might sound better here than Polo G, where I don't understand why he keeps insisting on trying these rougher drill cuts that obviously do not fit with where he actually is right now. So no, this isn't good either. So let's move on to number 87, Young and Dumb by Polo G. Okay, you see what I mean here? Even if I think the bass is kind of overweight against the guitar, this is a more authentic song, or at least it feels like it is, to where Polo G is right now, trying to speak to the kids who are getting consumed by the street and focusing more on the lingering trauma that ravages the kids that are caught within it. Now, I'm not saying there aren't bad lines here. Maybe don't mention how he gets no respect if he acts like a female, and you can tell that this isn't really a critique of that sort of machismo, even if that might be valid for that subculture. And I guess that's the point where you realize Polo G isn't quite getting as deep as he could with a song like this. So even if the hook is actually a little bit better, you're left feeling that there was a slightly missed opportunity. But again, it's not a bad song. It's doing the right mold. I don't mind this. Number 86, Me or Some by Nardo, Wick, Lil Baby, and Future.
She thinks she me or some. She keep a Glock in her bag. She thinks she me or some. VVS blocks with the cash. Think she me or some.
I think I've been on the outside looking in with Nardo Wick thus far. Who Wants Smoke blew up, but I wasn't really all that impressed in comparison with all of his collaborators. And now with another cut from that new album, he recruited even more folks to spit alongside him, with Future really seeming to take the lead here. And I don't know about you, but this kind of sounds like a Frankenstein in between two songs, which seems to be a thing with Future nowadays. I mean, he's got one Future fragment and one that got passed on to the other rappers, where not only do the warbling cadences and trap groove don't remotely mesh or transition well, but all the seedy keys and flutes behind Future's slapdash verse, they try to bend in supporting the other rappers to a more stable, darker progression, and it just sounds really rough. But then there's the content, where amidst all the stupid flexing and Lil Baby saying he's getting money like he's Jewish, oh god. The central conceit is that there's some girls who are out there flexing and getting guns and getting money, and think they're me or something? Honestly, it just feels like a weirdly dated flex coming from Future, especially with the rise of the recent wave of women in rap and trap who will go just as hard as every man here, if not harder. If anything, it feels like a bad throwback, or maybe a record that Nardo Wick was sitting on for a little while and just couldn't figure out how to get out. And now it just really sounds awkward. Either way, not good. Number 72, Merry Christmas by Ed Sheeran and Elton John.
Grateful December snow. I know there's been pain this year, but it's time to let it go. Next year you never know. But for now, Merry Christmas will.
Even before I heard about this song, I saw a headline that Ed Sheeran nearly killed Elton John with a belt he was using during the video shoot. So that's a promising sign for the original they wrote here. And you know what? It's a weird song too. The drums and the bells, they all boom with a lot more impact than you would expect off the twinkling keys, and the oddly textured groove. Ed Sheeran and Elton John just have no chemistry at all in meshing together their voices. And as much bombast as the song is trying to evoke, there's not really a sense of dynamics to work with, so the entire song feels like it's trying to crib from Do They Know It's Christmas at its absolute worst, especially with the repetitive outro and all the backing vocals trying to go for the sing-along. And yet, there's actually a part of me that doesn't hate this. Maybe it's how doggedly committed everyone seems to be to it. Maybe how desperate Ed Sheeran is to sound optimistic. It sounds like both artists care way more than they actually should about this. And you know, that can kind of work, even if I got the lingering feeling that Ed Sheeran might be better off writing winter feeling songs like Afterglow rather than making the outright standard holiday stuff. Still, presuming everyone can get past their Ed Sheeran issues, it's fine. I don't mind this. Number 66, Don't Play by Polo G featuring Lil Baby.
We'll wipe his nose like a handkerchief. Say you ride for him, then you down for him like a crash dummy, leave him land still. We was selling white like Taylor Swift, pockets we can't got no way to live.
And our last Polo G song here, obviously the one with the biggest credit and placed very early on the album, and yet honestly there's a part of me that really wants to like this, but maybe not for the right reasons. Yeah, both Polo G and Lil Baby sound pretty good riding what sounds like a marimba behind the trap groove, and it's probably one of the best hooks I've heard from Polo G in a decent bit, especially as he flips across the sports references, the gunplay, the flexing, but I'll be honest, I was laughing as soon as we got the line, "We were selling white like Taylor Swift," and Lil Baby follows it with "selling iCarly." I mean, comparing white girls to cocaine has gotten wild in these streets, my god. And what I like is that some of the bars just keep on getting more ridiculous. Velveeta, "that boy got dumb cheddar." Mike Vick, "start a dogfight." "Dripping all this water, can my haters even swim?" I mean, I'm on my fence whether or not some of these lines pivot from so ridiculous to kind of awesome, but they're certainly a lot more memorable than a lot of what I heard in this lane this year from both these artists. So there is a part of me that actually enjoyed this a decent bit more than I probably should have, especially when the production's good. So yeah, maybe this is really good? Maybe? Number 49, "Wander to LA" by Juice WRLD and Justin Bieber.
I find a little more love at my hotel room door, from the bed to the hotel room floor.
So I don't like some of the lines of defense that have come up around this song and the upcoming album. A lot of these songs previously existed. He would have wanted his fans to hear them. He was even working with some of these collaborators ahead of time, and of course, it's in the label's right to feed the demand. And while we'll probably have to have that conversation with the Juice WRLD posthumous album bomb likely coming next week, a lot of these arguments just feel like label copy and promo that falls apart with any scrutiny. In this case, for a demo that existed way back in 2018 and wound up with an entirely different instrumental and different artist with Justin Bieber, with whom Juice WRLD never worked. So no, I don't take the label's word for any of this when the process is irreparably corrupted by the money. It feels scummy all the way down, and that's kind of a shame because this song actually had some promise. The swamped out guitar builds to around an okay trap groove, the hook's actually pretty decent, and the conceit of finding a balance of love in between the drugs and debauchery of Los Angeles, it's not a bad one, even if Justin Bieber's verse winds up feeling weirdly self-serving. But then you notice that Bieber sounds louder in the mix in comparison with Juice WRLD, who is nestled deeper in, even on the hook, and then you realize they probably just had one decent take of the audio for him, and they're not going to track it louder and potentially expose more flaws. And the entire song winds up feeling like a cash grab again, at least for me. I mean, if you can look past it, it's a milquetoast pop trap song. I get the appeal, it doesn't really click, but for me, it just feels kind of grossly mediocre. Let's move on. And finally, number 7, "I Hate You" by SZA.
Shitty of you to make me feel just like this. What I would do to make you feel just like this.
So, Punch, what's the excuse for this not being released months ago? Better question, why has it been over 4 years since SZA's last album and she's had plenty of singles runway to get the traction now, especially as tours have opened up in a big way in 2021 and so many other people are already on her sound? Now keep in mind, it's not just me who are asking these questions. SZA's been infuriated with her label situation for a while now, and while I'm inclined to blame RCA for screwing up yet again, there has also been some known friction with TDE, which is probably why SZA has just started leaking songs on SoundCloud when they go viral on TikTok and force everybody's hand to put this on streaming, even if I'm naturally suspicious that all of this might be part of her rollout plan and it's just kind of a bad plan. Anyway, the song, pretty good, I think. The wiry synth backdrop behind the sandy percussion feels a little bit more old school, especially with the belting on the backing vocals, and SZA can certainly sell a kiss off to someone who is taking advantage of her and leaving her feeling ordinary, unsatisfied, and bored, or even as she untangles the last threads of this relationship, she can't find anything left there. It's effective in what the song's trying to do. It works for what it is, but when I heard Good Days, there was just this magic to the arrangement that this doesn't have. This feels small, a little bit more frustrated and chintzy. It makes me wonder that outside of the leak, whether or not this would have gone traction on its own with any proper promotion. Not saying it's bad or poorly performed or executed, I just wish there was a little bit more for me to like that comes with it. That's all. But it leads to a pretty strange week, especially going into our best and worst here. Okay, well, worst not so much, as it's gonna go to I'll Be Home for Christmas by Camila Cabello, with dishonorable mention to Me or Some by Nardo, Wick, Future, and Lil Baby. But for the best, you know what? Honorable mention is going to be a tie between Mercedes by Brent, Faiyaz and I Hate You by SZA. What can I say? It does work for me. And best of the week's actually going to go to Don't Play by Polo G featuring Lil Baby. What can I say? It swung around, it grew on me fast, if only partially for how ridiculous it is. Unfortunately, next week we're not going to have as much fun because we probably got that album bomb that I don't want to talk about from Juice WRLD's second posthumous project. So stay tuned for that. But until then, I'm Mark, you're watching Billboard Breakdown, affiliated with Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.